For many Unitarian Universalist congregations, it's a tradition to hold a special service called Ingathering at this time of year. It's a tradition because even though the church year started in July, or in some cases in January, and even though the congregation didn't shut down for the summer, thanks to A, air conditioning, and B, the lack of cholera, ingathering still happens anyway. Seriously though, if there was ever a time to hold an official ingathering service, it's now. This was the first somewhat normal summer in 3 years. So it's understandable that more people took advantage of children being out of school to visit family and travel. And those children are now back in school, or are about to be, for the first normal start of school since 2019. Of course, it is a new normal, with COVID-19 becoming endemic and annual shots for new variants, just like we get for the flu. But after 2.5 long years, it finally feels like being together and building community in person are with us once again. As part of her presidency of the Unitarian Universalist Association, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray records a message of hope, healing, and welcome for ingathering. Here is this year's message from our UUA president. So yes, not to belabor the point, but this Unitarian Universalist congregation strives to be a big umbrella. We want to welcome everyone, whether they are tall or hairy or plaid, or however many legs they have, and there is always room. We want to be a big, friendly umbrella that helps, spreads itself wide, gives shelter, and gathers people in. Those of you who've attended a membership orientation in at least the last decade know that we make a point of this. We lay out a piece of yarn on the ground here in the sanctuary, and then we ask people to place themselves on that continuum according to how much they align with the various sentiments that characterize either end of it. For example, pointing to one end of the line, we say, Sally Small prefers an informal congregation where she knows everyone by name and everyone knows her. She wants church to be an extended family. And pointing to the other end of the line, we say, Larry Large prefers a bigger congregation where he can be anonymous if he wants to be. He wants a church with the resources to offer a variety of programs. So people line themselves up closer to one end or the other, depending on whether they personally prefer a smaller or a larger congregation. And then we ask some of them to share their reasons for placing themselves where they did. Only there's always one of us at the larger congregation end, further even than the line of yarn goes, over by the window, in fact, as if we would keep going if only the window were open. And then when asked why we are so far on the larger congregation end of the continuum, the answer is simple. Because we don't want to be the person at the door who ever has to say to someone coming here for the first time, sorry, you can't come in. We have enough people already. We want this congregation to be a big, friendly umbrella where there is always room. We want this congregation to be a place where people can feel that they belong, where they can be noticed, named, and known, where each of us can be more than any of us are alone. As Susan Frederick Gray put it in her ingathering message, that is the power and the possibility of faithful community. Now, I like to joke about ingathering as a tradition that started because well-to-do Bostonians left town each summer to avoid outbreaks of cholera. And then their ministers had to figure out some way to bring them all back again. But I do appreciate what ingathering tries to do in getting people to be intentional about coming back to church for the fall season. And as I said earlier, this is the first fall that seems normal in 3 years. And that's certainly something to be celebrated. What's more, with the CDC's community risk level officially at low for Newport News and local cities, and with case numbers thankfully continuing to come down, we are able to do more as a congregation, like hold potlucks. The last 2.5 years have been hard, and it was particularly hard for just about every faith community. Religion, after all, is something that we practice together. You can't be religious all by yourself any more than you can sing in harmony by yourself. And some traditions even make a point of requiring a minimum number of people to be together for a religious practice. But we pulled through, and we figured out how to make it work. And just in case anybody forgets what we did last year, we held a historically successful capital campaign to boot. Now, of course, we're figuring out what this new normal means for us. We're navigating the reality of doing things in person and online, often at the same time, because none of us wants to be the person at the door who has to say to someone, "Sorry, you can't come in. We're closing this door now." And that means that we're figuring out what it means even to be in person, because it's not the same as it was before the pandemic. As Susan Frederick Gray put it in her Ingathering message, what comes next is still unfolding and being imagined. That doesn't stop us from celebrating, though. It doesn't stop us from celebrating the start of the fall season with plenty of exciting programs and a weekend of food, fellowship, and fun in our retreat at the Jamestown 4-H Center at the end of the month, and a pumpkin festival next month. It doesn't stop us from celebrating with singing and potlucks and people old and new who are bringing bold and inspiring ideas about what it means to be a religious community now. So let's celebrate that we are together, that we can be together in whatever way we can, and keep this big friendly umbrella opening ever wider for everyone. Now, usually at this point in the service, I ask some wondering questions, giving you a little time after each to reflect. But today I have just one question to ask you. I wonder what you are most excited about being together again. And how can you celebrate that? For now, though, let's sing about the power and the possibility of faithful community. I'm going to close with a reading that is part of the history and the identity of this congregation. This reading was part of the service when this building was first dedicated in 1980. And we used it again in the service when we rededicated the building after the flood in 2015. Of course, this building is not the congregation. This building is a means to serve our mission, whereas the congregation is made up of UUFP members and other people. And though I'm sure we'll use this reading again when we dedicate our new building sometime in the future, what this reading is talking about when it uses words like church and place is not a building, but a community. This community. This is the liberal church, a place to go where you know you belong, where the mind is free to soar beyond the coercions and crudities that inevitably beset all orthodoxies, where the heart is free to extend that larger love to all, unencumbered by notions of dogma, tradition, race, religion, country, or class, where the rights of individual conscience and action are guarded with vigilance, out of belief in the fitness of diversity, the liberty to be different, out of eternal hostility to every form of tyranny, where the hands are free to work and create for the cause of community and the hope of peace, where the soul is free to open, stretch, discover, develop, change, and grow, always, continuously, and progressively, where human promise is nurtured, supported, and blessed, and never cursed, degraded, or despaired of, where people are invited to be themselves in joy, in sorrow, in the struggle of the deeper self to be born, in the resolution of some great issue, in the witnessing to high ideals, in living and dying, seeking, finding, and serving. A place to learn, to grow, to sing, to stand. A place to encounter, reckon, judge, accept, and be accepted. A place to be challenged by new insight, and a place to be reminded of what one already knows. A place to go where you know you belong. This is the liberal church. May it be so.